Dr. Sarah Chen adjusted her diving mask one more time before stepping into the crystal-clear waters of Aquatica Prime. The ocean world stretched endlessly in every direction, its three moons creating gentle waves that sparkled like diamonds under the alien sun. She had been working on this planet for 6 months now, but the beauty of this underwater paradise still took her breath away. Ready for another day of sample collection? She asked herself, checking her equipment one final time. Her waterproof tablet showed the day's mission: collect deep-sea plant samples from the coral gardens near the Meridian Trench. It was routine work, but Sarah loved every moment of it. The water felt perfect against her skin as she dove deeper. Schools of rainbow-colored fish swam past her, completely unafraid of the strange human visitor. Some even seemed curious, following her for short distances before darting away to their own business. Sarah had always been a strong swimmer, but here on Aquatica Prime, she felt almost clumsy compared to the native thalassans. These graceful beings moved through water like dancers, their long, flowing limbs and bioluminescent patches making them look like living art. They could hold their breath for hours and dive to depths that would crush most humans without any special equipment. As she reached her target depth, Sarah began her work. The coral formations here were unlike anything on Earth. They grew in perfect spirals, creating natural tunnels and chambers that housed countless species. She carefully collected samples, making notes about each one on her waterproof tablet. That's when she heard it. A strange clicking sound echoed through the water, different from the usual whale-like calls of the thalassans. This sound was sharp, desperate, almost like a cry for help. Sarah stopped her work and listened carefully. The sound came again, weaker this time. Following the sound, Sarah swam toward a large coral cliff formation about 50 meters away. The clicking grew louder as she approached, and she could see flashing lights beneath a pile of broken coral chunks. Her heart raced as she realized what she was looking at. A young thalassan was trapped under the collapsed coral structure. Sarah could see the alien girl clearly now. Her skin was a beautiful shade of blue-green, and her bioluminescent patches were flashing in rapid, panicked patterns. Long, graceful arms were pushing against the coral debris, but the pieces were too heavy. The girl's large, dark eyes met Sarah's through the water, and the human could see the fear and desperation in them. Without thinking, Sarah swam closer. The thalassan girl tried to speak, but only bubbles came out. Her breathing apparatus, a delicate biological filter near her neck, was damaged and leaking precious air. Sarah realized with horror that the girl was drowning in her own element. Sarah's mind raced. The coral pieces were huge, easily weighing hundreds of pounds each. Even with her diving equipment, she couldn't possibly lift them alone. But she had to try something. Swimming to her equipment bag, Sarah pulled out her sample collection rods, strong metal tools designed for prying samples from rock formations. She swam back to the trapped thalassan and began working on the largest piece of coral debris. The first attempt failed. The rod slipped and the coral barely moved. Sarah could see the girl's light patterns growing weaker. Time was running out. "Think, Sarah, think," she told herself. Then she remembered her physics classes from college. She needed leverage, not just strength. Swimming around to find the best angle, Sarah wedged her collection rod under the coral piece and placed a smaller rock as a fulcrum point. Using her whole body weight, she pushed down on the rod like a lever. Slowly, incredibly, the massive coral chunk began to lift. The thalassan girl's eyes widened with hope. She used her free arm to push herself toward the opening Sarah had created. But there were still more pieces trapping her legs. Sarah's lungs were burning now. She had been underwater for almost 30 minutes, much longer than usual. But she couldn't surface now, not when the girl needed help. Instead, she did something that would have shocked any thalassan watching. She took her breathing regulator out of her mouth and offered it to the drowning girl. The thalassan looked confused for a moment, then understood. She took the breathing apparatus and inhaled the precious oxygen. Sarah held her breath and continued working on the coral debris, using her tools and her human problem-solving skills to create more leverage points. One by one, the coral pieces moved. Sarah's chest felt ready to explode, but she kept working. The Thalassan girl helped as much as she could, pushing herself free as each piece was moved. Finally, after what felt like hours, the girl was free. But she was weak from her ordeal and struggling to swim. Sarah grabbed her arm and began pulling her toward the surface, sharing her breathing equipment between them as they rose. They broke through the surface of the ocean just as Sarah's strength gave out. Both of them gasped for air, floating on, their backs under the alien sky. The Thalassan girl's bioluminescent patches were flickering in what Sarah hoped were patterns of gratitude. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, though she knew the girl probably couldn't understand English. The Thalassan girl turned to look at her, and to Sarah's surprise, she spoke in broken but clear English. "You saved me. Why?" Sarah was exhausted, but she managed to smile. "Because you needed help. That's what humans do." In the distance, Sarah could see other Thalassans swimming rapidly toward them. The girl must have sent out some kind of distress signal. As they approached, Sarah could hear their musical voices, calling out in their own language. The lead Thalassan, an older individual with elaborate light patterns, reached them first. He spoke rapidly to the girl in their native tongue, clearly checking on her condition. Then he turned to Sarah, his large eyes studying her with an expression she couldn't read. "Human," he said in accented English. "You have done something remarkable. Today." Sarah was too tired to respond properly. She just nodded and tried to stay afloat. The rescued girl, who Sarah now realized was quite young, swam closer and touched her arm gently. "My name is Kira," she said softly. "I will never forget what you did for me today." As the Thalassan rescue party helped both swimmers back to the research station, Sarah had no idea that her simple act of compassion had just changed everything. In saving one life, she had started something that would transform the relationship between humans and Thalassans forever. But that was a story for tomorrow. Today, she was just glad that everyone had made it home safely. The news of Sarah's rescue spread through the Thalassan underwater cities like ripples in a pond. Within hours of the incident, every family pod in the research sector knew the story. A human had saved a Thalassan in the deep waters. Not just any human, but a land-dwelling scientist who should have been helpless in their domain. Elder Nautilus floated in his council chamber, his ancient bioluminescent patches glowing with deep contemplation. Around him, other Thalassan leaders discussed the event in their musical language, their lights flashing in patterns of confusion and debate. "It changes nothing," declared Elder Coral, her red patches flashing with dismissal. "One lucky rescue does not make the humans our equals in the water. The girl was young and careless. Any of us could have done the same." "But none of us were there," replied Elder Nautilus quietly. "The human was alone, using primitive equipment. Yet she succeeded where we might have failed. Perhaps we should consider what this means." Meanwhile, in the human research station floating on the ocean's surface, Sarah was trying to get back to her normal routine. But normal was proving impossible. Her fellow researchers kept asking her questions about the rescue, and she was getting tired of telling the same story over and over. "Sarah, you're famous," laughed Dr. Martinez, her research partner, as he showed her his tablet. "The Thalassan news networks are calling you the Depth Walker. Apparently that's a title of great respect in their culture." Sarah looked at the alien text scrolling across the screen, understanding none of it. "I just did what anyone would do. I saw someone in trouble and helped them." "That's exactly the point," said Dr. Martinez. "To them, what you did was impossible. Humans aren't supposed to be able to save Thalassans in the water. You've turned their whole understanding upside down." Down in the depths, Kira was having her own struggles with fame. Her family pod had been celebrating her survival, but the constant attention was making her uncomfortable. Worse, some of the older Thalassans were questioning her version of events. "You must have exaggerated the danger," her cousin Reef suggested as they swam through their family's kelp gardens. "How could a surface dweller possibly save you when you're one of our best young divers?" Kira's lights flashed with irritation. "I know what happened, Reef. I was there. The human used tools and thinking in ways we never would have. She didn't just try to lift the coral with strength. She used leverage and physics." "Physics?" Reef's lights showed confusion. "What do land creatures know about water physics?" "More than we thought, apparently," Kira replied. That evening, Kira made a decision that surprised her entire family. She announced that she wanted to study human behavior and culture. Her parents, Tide and Current, exchanged worried glances. "Daughter," said Tide gently, "you owe the human a life debt, yes, but studying their entire species seems excessive." "It's not excessive, Father. It's necessary." Kira's lights pulsed with determination. "We've lived alongside humans for months, but we've never really tried to understand them. We see them as visitors in our world, interesting but limited. But what if we're wrong?" Current swam closer to her daughter. "What do you mean, young one?" "The human Sarah. She didn't hesitate to risk her life for me. In our culture, we protect our family pods first, then our clan, then our species. But she saved me, and I'm none of those things to her. I'm not even the same species. Why would she do that?" The question hung in the water like a puzzle none of them could solve. Back on the surface, Sarah was discovering that her rescue had created problems she never expected. The human research director, Dr. Thompson, called her into his office the next morning. "Sarah, we need to talk about what happened yesterday," he said, his expression serious. "Is there a problem, sir?" "The Thalassan government has sent some interesting communications. They want to know more about human rescue protocols and emergency response training. They seem to think your actions represent some kind of official human capability." Sarah frowned. "I just use common sense and basic physics. Any human with similar training could have done the same thing." "That's exactly what worries them, I think." Dr. Thompson leaned back in his chair. "Sarah, you may have accidentally demonstrated that humans are more capable in their environment than they previously believed. That has political implications." "What kind of implications?" "The kind where they might start seeing us as competitors instead of guests." This conversation was happening all over Aquatica Prime. In the depths, Thalassan philosophers debated whether humans possessed hidden abilities. On the surface, human diplomats worried about maintaining the delicate balance of their research agreement. But the most important conversation was happening between two unlikely friends. Kira had requested permission to visit the human research station. It was unusual. Thalassans rarely ventured to the surface, but her family's influence helped secure the approval. She arrived at sunset, her head barely above water as she held onto the station's floating platform. Sarah was waiting. For her, having been told about the visit request. "Hello, Kira," Sarah said, sitting cross-legged on the platform's edge. "How are you feeling?" "Better, thanks to you." Kira's English was improving rapidly. "I wanted to ask you something. Why did you save me?" Sarah was quiet for a moment, watching the alien sunset paint the sky in unfamiliar colors. "You were in trouble. I could help. It's that simple. But you didn't know me. You risked your life for a stranger. Does that matter? You're a person. You were drowning. What else was I supposed to do?" Kira studied Sarah's face with her large, dark eyes. "In my culture, we have strong bonds within our family pods. We would die for our relatives, our close friends. But for strangers, especially alien strangers, that's unusual." "Maybe that's what makes humans different," Sarah said thoughtfully. "We form connections quickly. We see someone in need, and they become our responsibility, at least, for that moment. Your species values all life equally? Sarah laughed softly. We're not perfect. Humans can be selfish and cruel too. But at our best, yes, we try to help anyone who needs it, regardless of who they are. Kira floated silently for several minutes, processing this information. Finally, she spoke again. I want to understand humans better. Will you teach me? If you want to learn, I'm happy to share. But I'd like to learn about thalassans too. Maybe we can teach each other. As the first alien stars began to appear in the darkening sky, neither Sarah nor Kira realized they were starting something revolutionary. Their simple friendship would soon become a bridge between two very different worlds. In the depths below, Elder Nautilus was reaching his own conclusions about the rescue. Perhaps it was time for his people to look at their human guests with new eyes. The ripples were spreading, and they were about to become waves. 3 weeks had passed since the rescue, and Sarah's friendship with Kira had grown stronger each day. The young thalassan visited the surface station regularly, eager to learn about human science and culture. In return, she taught Sarah about thalassan society and their deep understanding of ocean currents and marine life. It was during one of these teaching sessions that Sarah made a discovery that would change everything. The water feels different today, Kira mentioned as they floated together near the research platform. Her bioluminescent patches flickered with concern. The currents are wrong somehow. Sarah had noticed it too. Her instruments had been showing unusual readings for the past week. Water temperatures were shifting in patterns that didn't match the seasonal changes she had studied. But she had assumed it was just normal variation. What do you mean by wrong? Sarah asked, pulling out her waterproof tablet to check her latest measurements. The deep currents carry messages, Kira explained, her voice taking on the musical quality that thalassans used when discussing something important. They tell us about the health of our world. Lately, those messages have been confused. Sarah looked at her data with new eyes. As a human marine biologist, she had been trained to look at ocean systems from above, tracking surface temperatures, measuring chemical compositions, studying how weather patterns affected water movement. But the thalassans lived in the water. They felt every change in their bodies. Kira, can you show me how you read the currents? For the next several hours, Kira guided Sarah through the deep waters, teaching her to feel the subtle changes that thalassan's senses could detect. Sarah's human instruments combined with Kira's natural abilities created a complete picture that neither could achieve alone. What they discovered was terrifying. The currents are collapsing, Sarah whispered as they surfaced, her face pale with realization. The deep ocean circulation that keeps this planet's ecosystem stable, it's breaking down. Back at the research station, Sarah worked feverishly through the night, combining her data with Kira's observations. She created models, ran calculations, and cross-referenced everything with geological surveys of the ocean floor. The results were the same every time. Aquatica Prime was in danger. The planet's tectonic plates were shifting in ways that would disrupt the deep ocean currents within the next 50 years. Without those currents, the entire marine ecosystem would collapse. The coral cities would die. The fish populations would crash. The thalassan civilization itself was under threat. We have to tell someone, Sarah said to Kira as dawn broke over. The ocean. Your people need to know about this. They won't believe it, Kira replied sadly. Humans have only been studying our world for months. We have lived here for thousands of years. Why would they trust your analysis over their own understanding? Sarah knew Kira was right, but they had to try. She spent the next day preparing her findings, creating presentations that combined human scientific data with thalassan observational knowledge. She practiced explaining complex geological concepts in simple terms that could be translated into the thalassan language. The presentation was scheduled for the following evening at the main research facility. Representatives from both species would attend, including Elder Nautilus and the senior human scientists. Dr. Thompson was skeptical when he reviewed Sarah's findings. "This is pretty dramatic stuff, Sarah. Are you sure about your conclusions? The political implications of telling the Thalassans their world is dying?" "The science is solid, sir. Kira's observations confirm what my instruments are measuring. The changes are already beginning. They're just happening too slowly for most people to notice." "But you noticed because you're working with a Thalassan?" "Exactly. Neither of us could have seen the complete picture alone. We needed both perspectives." The presentation evening arrived, and Sarah felt more nervous than she had ever been in her life. The underwater conference room was a marvel of Thalassan engineering, a transparent dome on the ocean floor where both species could meet comfortably. Elder Nautilus floated gracefully in the center of the room, his ancient lights pulsing with curiosity. Around him, other Thalassan leaders displayed various patterns of interest and skepticism. The human scientists sat in their diving equipment, looking uncomfortable in the alien environment. Sarah began her presentation, showing charts and graphs that depicted the changes in ocean currents. She explained how tectonic shifts were affecting water circulation patterns, but she could see from the Thalassan light patterns that many were unconvinced. "With respect, Dr. Chen," Elder Coral interrupted, her lights flashing dismissively. "Humans have studied our oceans for less than 1 year. We have lived in these waters for millennia. How can you claim to understand our world better than we do?" This was the moment Sarah had been dreading. But before she could respond, Kira swam forward. "Elder Coral, may I speak?" Kira's lights showed the respectful patterns required when addressing a leader. "You may, young one. The human Dr. Chen is not claiming to understand our world better than us. She is showing us something we cannot see because we are too close to it. Like a fish that cannot see the water it swims in. We have lived with these changes so long that they seem normal to
us."
Kira activated her own display, showing current patterns that she had mapped over the past weeks. "I felt the wrongness in the waters, but I could not explain it. Dr. Chen provided the explanation. Together we can see what neither could see, alone." Elder Nautilus studied both displays carefully. His lights shifted to patterns that Sarah had learned indicated deep thought. "Show me the timeline," he requested. Sarah displayed her projections, showing how the changes would accelerate over the coming decades. "The process is already underway, but it will take time. We have perhaps 50 years before the most severe effects begin." "50 years is nothing to our species," Elder Nautilus mused. "We must plan for centuries, not decades. If you are correct, this threatens our entire civilization." Dr. Thompson leaned forward. "What would you need from us to verify these findings?" "Cooperation," Sarah answered immediately. "Our species see the ocean from different perspectives. Humans analyze from above. Thalassans understand from within. We need both viewpoints to fully understand what's happening." "And to find solutions," Kira added, her lights pulsing with hope. Elder Coral's patterns showed reluctant acceptance. "You are asking us to trust human science with our world's future." "I'm asking you to trust combined science," Sarah replied. "Human and Thalassan knowledge working together. Neither of us is complete alone." The room fell silent as the Thalassan leaders communicated through rapid light patterns. Finally, Elder Nautilus spoke. "We will form a joint research committee. Equal representation from both species. Dr. Chen, you will lead the human contingent. Kira, despite your youth, you will represent our people. You two have already proven that cooperation between our species can achieve the impossible." As the meeting ended, Sarah felt a mixture of relief and terror. They had convinced the Thalassans to take the threat seriously, but now came the harder task: finding a way to save an entire world. Kira swam beside her as they left the conference room. "You did it," the young Thalassan said. "They're listening." "We did it," Sarah corrected. "And now we have to save your planet." The real work was just beginning. 2 months had passed since the formation of the Joint Research Committee, and the work was proving more difficult than anyone had expected. The Thalassan High Council chambers buzzed with tense discussions as representatives from both species struggled to find common ground. "The human proposals are too aggressive," declared Elder Coral, her bioluminescent patches flashing with agitation. "They want to place artificial structures on the ocean floor, disrupting sacred spawning grounds that have existed for millennia." Sarah sat in her diving suit at the conference table, trying to remain patient. "Elder Coral, the thermal vents we want to modify are already dying. Our plan would redirect the geothermal energy to stabilize the current patterns. Without intervention, those spawning grounds will be destroyed anyway." "You ask us to trust technology we don't understand," replied Elder Reef, another council member. "What if your human machines fail? What if they make things worse?" Kira floated between the two groups, her lights showing the strain of being caught in the middle. "Both sides have valid concerns," she said diplomatically. "But we're running out of time to debate. The current shifts are accelerating." She was right. Sarah's latest measurements showed the changes happening faster than her original projections. What she had thought would take 50 years was now looking more like 30. The planet's ecosystem was breaking down at an alarming rate. The human delegation was having its own problems. Dr. Thompson had received pressure from Earth to be more careful about interfering with alien worlds. "The Xenobiology Council is concerned about the precedent we're setting," he told Sarah during a private meeting. "If we help the Thalassans save their planet, other species might expect the same level of intervention. Are we prepared to become the galaxy's environmental repair service?" "Sir, this isn't about politics," Sarah argued. "This is about preventing an extinction event. Millions of intelligent beings will die if we don't act." "I understand your feelings, Sarah, but we have to consider the bigger picture. What if our intervention causes unforeseen consequences? What if we accidentally make things worse?" Sarah felt frustrated by the endless debates while the planet's condition continued to deteriorate. But worse news was coming. Kira arrived at the surface station one evening with alarming information. Her usually calm demeanor was replaced by urgent, flashing light patterns. "Sarah, you need to see this," she said, barely stopping to greet her friend. "The deep sensors are detecting massive seismic activity near the abyssal ridge." Sarah immediately checked her geological monitoring equipment. The readings were worse than she had feared. "There's going to be a major underwater landslide," she said, her face pale, "and it's going to happen soon." "How soon?" Kira asked. "Days, maybe hours. The pressure has been building for weeks." They both understood what this meant. The abyssal ridge was home to one of the largest Thalassan cities, with over 2 million inhabitants. If the landslide occurred as Sarah's models predicted, the resulting underwater avalanche would destroy everything in its path. "We have to warn them," Kira said. "Warning them won't be enough," Sarah replied, frantically running calculations on her computer. "The city is built right in the landslide's path. They need to evacuate, but there's nowhere for 2 million Thalassans to go on such short notice." Sarah stared at her screen, her mind racing through possibilities. Then an idea began to form, dangerous, untested, but potentially their only hope. "What if we don't try to stop the landslide?" she said slowly. "What if we redirect it?" "Redirect it how?" "Controlled explosions. If we could create a series of smaller landslides in strategic locations, we might be able to channel the big slide away from the city." Kira's lights flickered with alarm. "Explosions? In our sacred waters? The council would never approve such a thing." "Then we don't ask for approval," Sarah said grimly. "We just do it." Within hours, Sarah and Kira were presenting their emergency plan to a hastily assembled joint session. The reaction was exactly what they had expected: shock, outrage, and immediate rejection. "Absolutely not," Elder Coral declared. We will not allow humans to detonate explosives in our ocean. The ecological damage would be catastrophic. With respect, Elder, Sarah replied, the ecological damage from doing nothing will be far worse. 2 million lives are at stake. Elder Nautilus studied the projection models that Sarah had created. How certain are you that this plan would work? 70%, Sarah admitted, but doing nothing gives us 0% chance of saving the city. Those are not good odds for risking our entire ocean ecosystem, Elder Reef protested. They're the only odds we have, Kira said firmly. I've run the numbers with Sarah. This is our best option. The debate raged for precious hours while the seismic pressure continued to build. Finally, Dr. Thompson made a decision that surprised everyone. We're going to do it, he announced, with or without official approval. I won't let 2 million people die while we argue about politics. The human delegation does not have authority to act unilaterally, Elder Coral warned. Then stop us, Sarah challenged. But while you're deciding whether to arrest us, we'll be trying to save lives. The next few hours were a blur of frantic activity. Sarah worked with human engineers to calculate precise explosion points, while Kira coordinated with young Thalassan scientists who were willing to help despite their elders' objections. The plan required perfect timing and unprecedented cooperation. Human explosive devices would be placed at specific points on the ridge, while Thalassan current shapers would use their natural abilities to guide the redirected debris flow. This is insane, muttered Dr. Martinez as he helped load the underwater charges. We're about to set off explosions in an alien ocean based on calculations we made in 6 hours. Sometimes insane is all we have, Sarah replied, checking her equipment one final time. As they descended toward the abyssal ridge, Sarah could see the massive Thalassan city in the distance. Its beautiful spires and glowing gardens stretched across the ocean floor, home to millions of beings who had no idea their world was about to change forever. The seismic sensors showed critical readings. The natural landslide could begin at any moment. All teams in position, Kira reported through the communication system. Human charges placed and ready. Thalassan current shapers are standing by. Sarah took a deep breath and looked at her friend. Ready? Ready, Kira confirmed. Detonate? Charges in 3, 2, 1, now! The ocean floor erupted in a series of controlled explosions. Rocks and debris began cascading down the ridge in carefully planned directions. For a moment, it looked like the plan might work. Then the natural landslide began, far larger and more violent than Sarah's worst projections. The real test of human Thalassan cooperation was about to begin. The ocean floor shook violently as the massive landslide began. Sarah watched in horror as millions of tons of rock and sediment cascaded down the abyssal ridge. Far more debris than her calculations had predicted. The controlled explosions had created their planned diversion channels, but the natural slide was overwhelming them. It's not working, Dr. Martinez shouted through the communication system. There's too much material. Sarah's heart sank as she watched the deadly avalanche bearing down on the Thalassan city. Their plan was failing, and 2 million lives hung in the balance. But then something amazing happened. Kira's voice came through the communicator, speaking rapidly in her native language to the Thalassan current shapers. Sarah couldn't understand the words, but she could see the results. The young Thalassans weren't just following the original plan anymore. They were adapting it in real time. Sarah, Kira called out in English, your explosions created new current paths. We can use them, but we need more diversion points. Can your people make smaller charges? Without hesitation, Sarah began redistributing the remaining explosive charges. Dr. Martinez, take Team 2 to Grid Section 7. Dr. Johnson, move your charges to the eastern slope. We need to create a spiderweb of diversion channels. The next 30 minutes were the most intense of Sarah's life. Human engineers and Thalassan current shapers worked together with a precision that amazed both species. Every time the landslide threatened to overwhelm one diversion channel, another team would create a new path for the debris. Sarah found herself working directly alongside Elder Coral, the Thalassan leader who had opposed the plan most strongly. The elderly Thalassan used her powerful natural abilities to redirect water currents, while Sarah calculated the best placement for each charge. "Your species thinks very quickly," Elder Coral observed as they worked. "You adapt your plans as conditions change. Your species feels the water's movements better than any instrument we have," Sarah replied, placing another charge precisely where the Elder's current reading indicated it would be most effective. "We need both abilities to make this work." Slowly, incredibly, their combined efforts began to succeed. The landslide was being channeled away from the city through a network of diversion paths that neither species could have created alone. The deadly avalanche was becoming a controlled flow of debris that would settle harmlessly in deep ocean trenches. As the last of the landslide material settled safely away from the city, both teams surfaced, exhausted but victorious. The Thalassan city was safe, its 2 million inhabitants unaware of how close they had come to disaster. Elder Nautilus arrived at the Emergency Coordination Center as the teams were recovering. His ancient light patterns showed a mixture of relief, gratitude, and something else that Sarah couldn't identify. "Dr. Chen," he said formally, "you and your people have saved our city. But more than that, you have shown us something we did not expect to see." "What's that, Elder?" "You have shown us that our species are stronger together than either is, alone. Your human ability to think and adapt quickly, combined with our deep understanding of the ocean currents, created possibilities that neither species could achieve separately." Dr. Thompson, who had arrived to assess the situation, looked puzzled. "Elder Nautilus, are you saying this changes the relationship between our species?" The ancient Thalassan's lights pulsed in patterns that Sarah had learned indicated great importance. "Dr. Thompson, I am saying that this changes everything. We propose something that has never been attempted in galactic history." "What do you mean?" "Full partnership. Not humans studying our world as guests, not Thalassans sharing information as hosts. True cooperation between equals, working together to solve problems that neither species can handle alone." Sarah felt her heart racing. "You're talking about permanent collaboration?" "More than that," Kira interjected, swimming up to join the conversation. "We're talking about a new model for how different species can work together throughout the galaxy." Elder Coral, who had opposed human involvement so strongly just hours before, added her voice to the discussion. "Today proved that our assumptions about human capabilities were wrong, but more importantly, it proved that our assumptions about the need for species independence were also wrong." "What exactly are you proposing?" Dr. Thompson asked. Elder Nautilus's lights shifted to formal presentation patterns. "We propose the creation of the first truly integrated interspecies research facility. Not a human station on our world or a Thalassan facility that accepts human visitors. A joint facility where both species work together as equal partners." "The applications would be enormous," Sarah said, her scientific mind already racing with possibilities. "Marine biology, geology, climate science, even space exploration could benefit from this kind of cooperation. And it all started because you jumped into the water to save a drowning girl," Kira said with amusement, her lights flickering in patterns that Sarah had learned meant happiness. Dr. Thompson looked overwhelmed. This is beyond anything I have authority to approve. I'll need to contact Earth immediately." "And we must consult with the High Council," Elder Nautilus agreed. "But I believe both our peoples will see the wisdom in this proposal." Over the following weeks, as the bureaucratic processes moved forward on both sides, Sarah and Kira continued their work together. They were officially tasked with developing the framework for the proposed joint research facility, but Sarah knew they were really creating something much more important. They were proving every day that the partnership could work. The official approval came 3 months later. Earth's Xenobiology Council and the Thalassan High Council both voted to establish the Aquatica Prime Integrated Research Center, with Dr. Sarah Chen and researcher Kira as co-directors. But for Sarah, the real reward had come much earlier, in a quiet moment during the landslide crisis when she realized something profound. The rescue that had started everything hadn't just saved one life. It had opened a door to possibilities she had never imagined. "Do you ever think about that day when you were trapped under the coral?" Sarah asked Kira as they floated together near the construction site of their new facility. "Every day," Kira replied, "but not because you saved my life." "What do you mean?" "I think about it because that's when I learned that being different from someone doesn't mean you can't help them. And being helped by someone different doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger." Sarah smiled as she watched construction teams of humans and thalassans working together, building something that neither species could have created alone. In the distance, she could see other alien ships arriving, representatives from species throughout the galaxy who had heard about the Aquatica Prime project and wanted to learn more. "I think," Sarah said thoughtfully, "that we're going to need a bigger research facility." Kira's lights pulsed with laughter. "Good thing we know how to adapt our plans." As the alien sun set over the endless ocean of Aquatica Prime, Sarah reflected on how one simple act of compassion had changed everything. She had jumped into the water to save a drowning girl, expecting nothing in return. Instead, she had received something beyond imagination, the chance to help build a better future. For the entire galaxy, the unexpected reward wasn't technology or treasure. It was the knowledge that differences between species weren't barriers to overcome, but strengths to combine. And that sometimes the most important thing a person could do was simply reach out to help someone in need. The ripples from that rescue were still spreading, and they always would be.